How do you find right now the axis of resistance? Are they gonna be defeated as Bashar al-Assad was defeated in Syria?
I think they've taken a blow, but I don't think it's the serious blow that some are saying. And I think Iran is already dealing with it in a very level headed, circumspect way. They had already opened, I'm told, and pretty good sources, they had already opened some preliminary talks with probably through Oman, but could have been through Qatar, could have been through Egypt. I don't know. I can't pin that down, but they'd already opened some talks with what you might call a forward team for Donald Trump about negotiations on a new agreement. I think the impetus for this was the new president, and maybe Zarif probably too, and others. But so what they've got now is a situation where that is the strategic alternative remaining to them that makes some sense, especially if this plays out the way some are saying it's going to play out. Now, I don't for a moment know that it's going to play out because let's face it, this individual who's in charge in Damascus now is anybody's guess. I mean, let's just face what he's been leading. He's been leading the people at our beck and call, mind you, and Israel's and Britain's. And apparently, since Erdogan decided to violate the agreement he made with Putin in Astana, we offered him billions of dollars to help his economy get back in some kind of decent shape. And I want to say to him, you know what we did to Turkey in 1990-91, right after the Gulf War, and the Congress wouldn't approve the billions we promised you? Stand by for the same thing. So I mean, that's a rambling answer, but I think Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, I guess it is, who's leading it, are a big question mark right now. I don't think anyone knows where they're going. I listened to Lavrov, and Lavrov was pretty clear about who he thought was behind it: Israel, the United States, and Britain. He's absolutely right. We didn't think that it would happen this fast and in this blitzkrieg fashion. But what we've been doing in the United States ever since my president, George W. Bush, turned to George Tenet after we couldn't go on from Iraq and take Bashar al-Assad down, we thought it'd just be a cakewalk. After we couldn't do that because of the insurgency in Iraq, he turned to George Tenet, and he didn't need a presidential finding. They didn't want to archive it. He told Tenet, get rid of Assad. And we've been trying to do it ever since. Obama made it official with a presidential finding in 2015, as I recall. But we've been trying to get rid of Assad ever since then. And we will ally with anybody, even the people who brought down the towers and killed people on videos. You know, that's what we've done. And look at what we're doing with the Kurds again. Oh my God. We made a deal with Turkey. Turkey wants to eliminate the Kurds as much as possible. They see the PYD as the same way they see the PKK. And they also want to get those refugees back into Syria, which I understand today they were already streaming back into Syria.
How about the situation for Palestinians, for Gazans, for the people in the West Bank? Because we know all of these attempts on the part of Iran to help Hezbollah was because of the situation in Palestine, in
Yes.
Gaza, in the West Bank. What would happen to them, in your opinion?
Netanyahu's got his wish here in the immediate time frame. He's got the focus off Lebanon, and he's got the focus off Gaza. The focus is on Syria now, and that's what he wants. He doesn't want people watching him brutally slaughter men, women, and children in Gaza. I read a piece this morning. My daughter sent it to me. I had not seen it. It's about this group that is forming amongst the 465,000 or so reservists in Israel. It's small right now, but it's growing every day, and they're fed up. They're fed up with the war. They're fed up with the methodologies of the war, particularly in Gaza. And so you've got 600 or 700 of them now, and it's growing every day. And they're fed up also with the fact that they think Bibi Netanyahu doesn't give a tinker's damn about the hostages. And that's really got some of them worried. But they're not showing up for duty. They're not answering the call. They're not going back for a second tour, or in some cases a third tour. So he's got to focus off of that now with Syria, and look what he's doing in Syria. I had an argument with a Jewish gentleman this morning. Oh no, he's not going to go any further than just a little buffer zone, right? Ben Gvir and Smotrich are back there planning on settlements in Golan and beyond. I know they are. I just know they are. It takes the focus off Gaza, and that's bad because we needed to hammer that focus until somebody had the guts, the courage to put Netanyahu in chains.
How did you find the fall of government in Syria? Iranians are talking about that Turkey has betrayed them. Russians are talking the same way.
Yeah.
And what was, Larry, your take on what Turkey has been doing and has done in Syria?
Well, it was that huge bribe. I'm told it was $4 or $5 billion first installment. And, you know, inflation's terrible in Turkey right now. And if he wants his foreign minister to take over, he's got to do something to improve the economy. I think Turkey had a choice to make. Again, you know, which way do I go? Do I go to Moscow? They didn't offer me much money. What I really want to do is get these Syrians out of my country, and I want to take care of the Kurds once and for all, and maybe get myself a little buffer space in Syria, like Netanyahu says he's getting, but I think Erdogan really means that. Buffer space alone. I don't think he wants any more of Syria. And so he went with the U.S., Britain, Israeli. I'm also told the Israelis promised him money, and I wondered, you know, where are the Israelis going to get? Oh, they're going to get it from Sugar Daddy. That's where. So we'll be giving money, if we give any, to Erdogan, and we'll be giving Israel share too. Maybe Israel meant something else other than money, but I understand the deal was quite luxurious for Erdogan. So we bought him. You know, I'm sure he wouldn't like that epithet, but I think we bought him like a whore. We bought him. I think Lavrov might have said something like that in Doha if he'd really been pressed. When he's in English, he speaks English very well, but he has to search like I do in French for, you know, for words sometimes, and it's not quite as fluid as it is in Russian, I suspect. But he summed it up, I think, pretty much. And he also summed up the other situation when he was asked about Ukraine. He kind of started off by saying, remember Admiral Buchanan and his remarks? Rear Admiral Buchanan, speaking for the U.S. Strategic Command, he said, a very serious mistake. That was what he said in English. And then he went on to say, to speak about a limited nuclear war is an invitation to disaster. And of course, he's absolutely right there. But we're looking at this chain of war, proxy war for the most part, running all the way from, actually from Belarusia, all the way down through Ukraine and down into the Levant and down to Chabahar and Bandar Abbas. That's where the conflict is impacting people in a major way, all along there, for different reasons, but nonetheless, the empire is central to it. The empire is central to it. And its clean break strategy is central to it. Because the clean break strategy says chaos. Let's foment chaos. All along that line, let's have chaos. That's what Nord Stream 2 was all about. Chaos. Let's have chaos, because into chaos, only the empire can come and fix things. That's what we've done. If you liked Libya, look at Syria over the next year. I mean, no one's going to control this. Not Jelani, not Iran, not Russia, although Jelani has said something about maybe declaring an Alawite autonomous zone, and that's where the Russian base is, naval and the air base. But to show you the Russians' concern, they sortied their naval fleet into the Mediterranean, not knowing what was going to happen to it. I mean, Israel was just as apt to go over there and bomb the ships. Israel was bombing everything, and still it's bombing everything in Syria. Anything that might look like it could be used as a weapon, they're bombing. And that's not just because they want to make sure Hezbollah can't pick up any pieces. That's because I think they have other aspirations for Syria. I've always thought that. Always thought that. I've always looked at that highway to Damascus and looked at how fast an Israeli armored division could be there. And if it were a clean slate and they weren't embroiled in Lebanon and in Gaza, they'd go right away. They'd take the whole damn region. That's what they want to do ultimately anyway. If I were the king and Amman, I'd be really counting my days, because they want that too. And they want the water and the resources associated with it. It is not settled at all, is what I'm trying to say, and it's going to be a mess. If you think Libya is a mess right now, and it surely is, Syria is going to be worse.
Was Turkey cooperating with the United States and Israel behind the scene before this happening in Syria? Because right after the ceasefire, Larry, this is so important. What was the reason that right after the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel, this attack has happened in Syria?
Yep.
Who's behind that? Who's the mastermind of this? Is Netanyahu?
No, I think the mastermind is in Washington, and I don't use mastermind loosely. I think the mastermind is more the intelligence community of MI6, CIA, and Mossad than it is Biden or Blinken or Sullivan. Although I can see Jake's hand in this, but I think it's probably the intelligence agencies who've been running this all along anyway. They're the ones who have been shooting at American soldiers, for example, in Syria, because the American soldiers thought they were supposed to be shooting at ISIS and did. And what they were shooting at was CIA agents running ISIS. So, I mean, this is crazy. I mean, and we've still got those U.S. forces over there in that sector. It's just so confused that I don't think, unless Bill Burns is personally briefing the president, I don't think probably the national command authorities, we used to call them, the Secretary of Defense, the President, Secretary of State, I don't think they probably have a clear picture on it either. I think the intelligence community thinks they might have a clear picture, but I doubt if they do. And if Bill's doing anything at all, he's probably telling Biden, if he's telling Biden anything, probably talking to Blinken, that HTS and AMJ, I'm calling Solani AMJ, are just as apt to do something that's in our disinterest tomorrow morning as they are to do something that's in our interest. So I don't know how they deal with it other than day by day, hour by hour. And I think I've told you this before. Bashar al-Assad was one, and his people were one of the most helpful after 9/11 in terms of identifying Al Qaeda to us, where they were and what they were doing. He was trying to buy into the good graces of the empire, I'm sure. But we quickly turned on him, just like we turned on Gaddafi. One minute Gaddafi's having lunch with Americans in Tripoli, and the next minute we came, we saw, he died. You know, Hillary Clinton. That's the way the empire operates now. Putin said it clearly. Don't anybody trust the United States of America? They're duplicitous. They lie. They cheat. They steal. They'll sneak up on your back and cut your throat. That's the way Putin looks at us. That's the way Lavrov looks at us. And I don't blame them one bit. Netanyahu's in real deep internal trouble right now. I'm going to be very surprised if he survives for another month. Now, I know he's a magician, but he has got some people in Israel who are as bloodthirsty as he, really angry at him. And it's going to be, I was watching his body language, yesterday, I guess, just a few minutes of video, but he's just one walking pissed off guy now. And he's got so many people who are after him, and not just the attorney general, but I mean, now he's got Gallant coming out and revealing things about him and about their relationship and such. And I think the killer for him right now is that no one, And this is a big thing behind that movement I was telling you about amongst the reservists. No one thinks he's interested one whit in the hostages. Now, how could he change that? Get a deal. What was it I saw this morning? 225 were taken hostage. 97 of them are still unaccounted for, allegedly held by Hamas or Hamas people. Half of them are estimated by Mossad to still be alive. So that's maybe 50 that are still alive. That's not a lot. It's certainly not the 225 who went originally, but if he could get some of those back, the euphoria associated with that might attenuate some of these problems he's got. But he's got to do that, and he's got to do it fairly swiftly.
Well, I've heard a number of different stories and explanations. I think what is emerging is that Assad, for whatever reason, kept rejecting outside advice, both from Russia and even from Turkey. He had declined to meet with the Turks, and I don't know what he thought his goal was, his ambition was. But, and some of this goes back a few years where he rejected Russian offers to really train up and professionalize the Syrian military. So there were a lot of underlying problems. Turkey took advantage of this situation to seize Aleppo and to get into bed with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. Now, HTS is being backed as well by, in my view, by the United States and the United Kingdom. Turkey had been always used in the past as a cutout for funneling weapons, money, and training to the radical Islamists. And, so there was something in this to be had for Turkey. The primary contact for both the U.S. and the U.K. was through Turkish intelligence service, MIT. And, I don't think, though, anyone anticipated such a quick collapse of the Syrian military. Clearly, people were caught off guard. So, did the Russians and the Iranians know that they had problems with Turkey? Probably. Do they know it was going to collapse? I don't know. This will get chalked up as an intelligence failure, I'm sure. Did the U.S. know? I doubt it. They were hopeful, but they were making these predictions 11 years ago that about Assad's imminent collapse. Ultimately, this is on Assad because he didn't do a good job for his country. Reportedly, the army was underpaid, and corruption was allowed to go unchecked. And so he just sort of went along with it. And so you've now got this chaos. And that's where people really need to focus. These folks said, oh, this is a big black eye for Russia and for Iran. Yeah, but you know what? Syria is not on the border of Iran and Russia. Turkey is, Iraq is, Jordan, Israel. They've got some things to worry about now going forward because, number one, the ideological nature of HTS is so deeply infused with this Salafist view of Islam for the envision of global caliphate. Jelani reportedly has toned down that rhetoric. Oh no, we just want to do it in this country. Oh, okay. But everything's going to be ruled by Islamic rule, more strict than anything you've seen in Saudi Arabia. And with that, it comes an intolerance of other Muslims, Shia Muslims in particular. I can show you writings. One of the predecessors of Jelani was Zarqawi, who formed ISIS or Daesh. And so Jelani was part of that early on. And in the writings of Zarqawi, there was no mercy, no tolerance of the Shia. Now, to the average Christian, to the average Jew, looking outside in at the Muslims, they go, what's the difference? Shia, Sunni, they're all Muslim. They all follow the basic tenets of Islam, of doing the Hajj and praying a certain number of times a day and reading the Quran. The duties that attend with what being a Muslim means. Shia, Sunni, it's like vanilla ice cream and vanilla ice cream with vanilla beans in it. Okay, it's vanilla. Well, that's not how people within the Islamic communities necessarily view themselves. There are some Muslims that, they don't make a big deal about the distinction between Sunni and Shia. But there are others that matters a whole hell of a lot. And to people like Jelani, means the world. So they're not about to set up and we're going to be tolerant and embrace our Shia brothers. That's nonsense. Notice that even within the ISIS sects, they've been fighting amongst each other over who's really got the true insight into being God's spokesman or the spokesman of Allah. So it is, it's very complicated. So what this means is the likelihood of chaos going forward is increased, guerrilla activities, and that means the ability of countries, whether we're talking Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, or Israel, to control those events is going to be very limited. And it oftentimes is going to pitch one against the other. So this really is a recipe for disaster for at least the next 2 to 3 years. It's not like there's an underlying commitment saying, hey, we're all Americans. We're in this together. We're all Syrians. We're in this together. No, there's not that at all. You've got Christian communities. You've got Alawite communities. You've got Druze communities. You've got Kurdish communities. And you've got the Sunni Muslim communities. And you got the communities with loyalties to the Turks. Communities with loyalties or family relationships with Iraq and with Jordan. So it's I think the technical term is big fucking mess. What's fascinating is, number one, HTS, the first appearance it makes is in the country reports on terrorism issued by the Department of State in 2018, which covers the events for 2017, and they notice, hey, the HTS was formed in January of 2017, brought together al-Nusra and 2 or 3 other groups. Well, al-Nusra's predecessor was ISIS. Al-Nusra was involved with the false flag chemical weapon attack that the White Helmets proclaimed back in 2013 was carried out by the Syrian government, which was a lie. It was al-Nusra and elements connected with al-Nusra. And so here comes Jelani. So Jelani is now, since 2017, and the State Department's supposed to issue that report every year. So like this year's 2024, they should have issued the report for 2023, to say in April, but they didn't do it. So the last report that's out is for 2022. So in that 5-year period, from 2017 through 2022, appearing in the top 10 of terrorist groups worldwide, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Okay, they're in the top 10. So it reminds you of there was this guy on the radio, Dick Clark, used to do the top 10, top 100 countdown of popular music. We can do the same thing for the top 10 popular terrorist groups. And when you go through that list, almost, well, yeah, the vast, like 80% of them are Sunni Islamic groups. ISIS in North Africa, ISIS in the, this ISIS, that ISIS, and then Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Baluchis, something or other, and then the Philippine New Army. But you know what's not on that list? What's not on that list? Iran. What's not on that list? Hezbollah. What's not on that list? Hamas. So it just exposes the lie that those are the big terrorist actors in the Middle East. Nonsense. So, the United States, and not just the United States, Russia, and the United Nations. Anytime you can get Russia, the United States, and the United Nations all agreeing on something pretty important, they all agree. HTS is a international terrorist group. The U.S. has got a $10 million bounty on its head. Just like, see the rewards posters over my shoulders? I was involved in I helped create the terrorism rewards program. I don't take credit for this because they ignored my recommendations. But, they got this stupid poster out now like, give us this terrorist for $10 million. But is the United States going to shutter its embassy? Break off all diplomatic relations? Or just only allow the CIA to continue to talk to the guy? I mean, he's got literally blood on his hands. He's beheaded people. So this is a mess. The United States has painted itself into a corner where we've now backed this terrorist who says he's going to work and play well with the Jews and with the Kurds, and that he's inclusive. I'm surprised the guy didn't come out and go, yeah, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm transgender. If he would have done that, it would have been, a complete world turned upside down. I don't see him having this dramatic religious convergence where all of a sudden he's joining hands with people singing "We Are the World."